Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 2. The first series with David Tennant, the second series with Russell T Davies, the series that would see the return of the Cybermen, the Daleks, Sarah Jane, K9, and also see the departure of Rose Tyler. But with hindsight, is it actually any good? Now, as a lot of people are aware, David Tennant used to be my favourite Doctor, and in recent times that is very much not the case. In fact, he's very much quite low down now on my list of all of the Doctors, and I think that's just because my opinions have changed. I think nostalgia doesn't really affect me with the 10th Doctor the same way that it does the 4th Doctor, for example, or even Christopher Eccleston. But I do enjoy a fair chunk of David Tennant's era. But what I will say about Series 2 is that, in my humble opinion, I feel like this is not only David Tennant's worst, but also the worst of Russell T Davies' entire run. Series 2 has so little going for it in so many different places. It's not a terrible series by any means. That's not me saying that it doesn't have any great episodes, because it genuinely does. In fact, some of the best New Who is in this series. However, it's surrounded by so much crap and melodrama and stuff that doesn't need to be in Doctor Who that it gets a bit distracting. And I think if you do take the nostalgia out of it and you actually think about it, there's a lot of this series that you'll probably agree and think, yeah, that is actually a bit naff. Each to their own, of course. So before I get into the rest of this video, I just want to sort of say that, you know, similar with the Series 1 review, I'm not going totally in depth. I'm not going to be analysing every single second and every single frame of each episode. I'm going to be talking about the major talking points. I'm going to be talking about certain episodes in a little bit of detail, and that's about it. And then my general overall thoughts of the series, even though I've kind of just done that last bit. Anyway, so this series, as you know, is the first featuring the 10th Doctor as played by David Tennant. Now, looking back at the series, I think the reason why I don't particularly like Tennant as much now is because of the romance aspect. In fact, when we get to Series 4, but you guys probably know already, that is my favourite series with the 10th Doctor, and in terms of the new series, it is in my top 3. The reason why I think I like that one so much is because the Doctor finally feels like just the Doctor, you know, someone who is looking for a friend, just travels around with that friend. There's no romantic interest there, or there's no sort of will they won't they like there was with Martha. This series, not all of it, but a lot of it is the Doctor and Rose flirting with each other and them talking about their relationship, and they're essentially a couple realistically, which is something that I just flat out hate. I disagree with the Doctor being romantically invested with anybody, whether it's Rose, whether it's River, whether it's K9, whoever. The Doctor doesn't need that. At least I thought that anyway. The thing that gets the Doctor excited, for lack of a better word, is travelling around the universe and soaking in knowledge, seeing new cultures, saving people, learning about different creatures and aliens and planets, and just seeing it, just observing it, just travelling. When you add in the romantic aspect, it adds a new dimension to the Doctor's character that is borderline creepy, at this point at least. The Doctor is over 900 years old. Rose is 19. So there's a bit of an age gap there, it's safe to say. But not only that, he's a totally different species. The Time Lords shouldn't be a race of beings who are focused on that. You know, they should be out there looking for knowledge, and a lot of Doctor Who, the classic era, is about that. It isn't about, you know, romantic interest, because it's not something that is needed within the show. If you have, so for example, if you have characters like Amy and Rory, that's fine to a point. I think they overdid that, but we'll get to that. But I think the romantic aspect with the Doctor just adds something to the Doctor's character that you flat out don't need. I think it was done for a very specific reason, and that was to appeal to a certain demographic of people. Obviously it worked. It still works with a lot of people, but for me, as somebody who appreciates the character, I just don't like it in any way, shape or form. His performances are good though, seeing as we are still talking about David Tennant. His performances are good. I think he is a little bit cringeworthy at places, and that is mostly down to his mannerisms and the way that he talks, where he's like, and sort of, you know what I mean? Not well, even though I know Tom did that, but Tom did it better. It's that overly Cockney accent that really grates on me at certain points. And when he says stuff like, oh, Alonzi, which I know is later on especially, but that sort of stuff really irritates me with this Doctor. He's fine in this series. He's got some genuinely great moments. He's got some moments in this that are genuinely brilliant. Rose is ruined in this, going back to the romance thing. Essentially that, but with Rose, you know. She doesn't feel like the same character from series 1. She doesn't feel like somebody who can just, you know, learn about the universe and take it on. She feels like somebody who relies so much on the Doctor and is like, I can't. It's almost like a teenager's crush, because that's essentially what this is. And she's like, oh my god, I can't live without the Doctor, I need the Doctor. When really it should be about the adventure and not the person. But again, that's leading back into the romance thing that I just spoke about. Again, has her moments, but by the end of this series, I'm glad she's fucking gone. Until series 4, obviously. So let's talk about a couple of individual episodes then that really stand out for me. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about School Reunion. It was nice to have a little bit of a bridge towards classic Doctor Who, and I imagine this was done to appeal to classic Doctor Who fans, and I think it definitely worked, because if it wasn't for this episode, I don't think I would have gone back and watched the classic era. Seeing Sarah Jane portrayed as well as she is in this, as well as K9 as well, made me want to watch more. And I've explained this story before, but that's what made me go back and buy The Hand of Fear, which is Sarah Jane's last story, because it was released on DVD to coincide with this. I mean, there's a little bit of the romance aspect there, sort of like I got old and you replaced me. I don't like that stuff. That should be a given the rant before. But I think because she was so likeable and enjoyable, I wanted to see more of her. I had to see more of her, because I thought, oh, she's talking about like giant robots and, you know, seeing the Loch Ness Monster and stuff. Like, what's that about? Obviously I found out, and turns out fucking brilliant. The story itself is a bit cheesy and it's a bit fun, but that's not necessarily a problem. You can have episodes like that, because every now and again you will get one like this that does actually work. And I think it is a real new layer to the Doctor's character, because we've never really seen him properly have to deal with a companion coming back. Obviously you've got your anniversary specials or story like the Two Doctors, but I can't think off the top of my head too many occasions where a companion left and then they came back. That was a really interesting thing to see. Next I want to talk about the Cyberman two-parter, Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel. Now that story is fucking amazing. Now at this point I'd already seen Cybermen before, because I went and bought Hand of Fear, like I said, then I went and got Earthshock. So these Cybermen to me were really weird at first, because they were so robotic. I don't like that about those Cybermen. I don't like that they're sort of stomping around going delete, 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 because it doesn't work. It just feels cliche, and it feels like they're trying to make them closer to the Daleks, when I think the Cybermen are perfectly unique in their own right, that they don't need to be like that. However, the story itself I think is done incredibly well. I think it's very tense. I think there's genuinely some creepy and chilling moments. One thing that I really appreciated about it as well is the fact that I could actually see it happening. The way that technology is going, everybody knows that, you know, someone somewhere is going to plug you into something and all this sort of crap, probably. Old tinfoil hat conspiracy theory there. But seeing it play out on screen, you know, people with these earpods that, you know, literally stop you in your tracks, and then they play through different things like your news, the weather, a joke of the day. Stuff like that was really interesting to me, and it was also great to see not quite Earth, like this parallel Earth where you see a world where Pete Tyler didn't die, and in fact he actually went on to be very successful. It's interesting because you see an episode like Father's Day and you meet Pete and who he is, and you see this is essentially kind of like a sequel to that, or at least that plot thread. Not totally, but it really works. I just love the Cybermen, and I think this, in terms of how I imagine them, in terms of, you know, going into people's homes and converting them or dragging them out of their homes, and if they don't agree they're going to kill them, you know, it really plays on the main nature of the Cybermen. It's not like Cybermen are fully formed and they're just going to go out and kill everyone, because they wouldn't. They have to go out and convert people and make more, and that aspect really interests me. Next, of course, I've got to talk about the Ood two-parter, which I feel is probably the strongest episodes of the season. It's a really great base undersea story. What I really like about it is that it is so claustrophobic, and you genuinely don't feel like there's a way out for the Doctor. The TARDIS is gone, They're right by a black hole. The crew members are getting picked off one by one. There's this ancient force that the Doctor just does not have a clue about. Everything seems stacked against him and the stakes are so high. And I love stories like that because you need to put a character that is so magical, like the Doctor, in a situation that is almost impossible for him to get out of. The problem is you have to get him out of that in a satisfying way. This story almost does that, but I think the whole weird CGI Satan thing and the smashing of the jars, it's not perfect, but I can live with it. I think there's an almost perfect story here. I like a lot of the characters as well. They all seem really relatable and down to earth, and they actually feel like real people. The Ood, of course, are amazing. I love the design of them. I love the fact that they're like Dr. Zoidberg on fucking meth. It sort of started the beginning of a trend though, where if they just ran out of ideas, they'd get some sort of animal shape or thing that we're used to on Earth and make a face out of it. So of course, you know, Ood, sort of like octopus, squid type things. Then you've got the Vimvochi, I think they're called, in End of Time, and you've got the Jadoon, which are just rhino people. In Planet of the Dead, you've got the fly people. Like, it's a bit lazy, but then again with the Ood, I think it was the most successful. Again, another brilliant thing about this story is the fact that it brings back Gabriel Wolfe, who voiced Sutekh in Pyramids of Mars, and his voice is just as fucking awesome in this as it was in that. Really good cliffhanger as well. Really good cliffhanger. And then I'll touch upon the finale briefly, but I don't particularly want to. First part, Army of Ghosts, I think is fantastic. I think it sets everything up fantastically. The only downside is you get to the second part and the Cybermen are just treated like cannon fodder, and it's incredibly melodramatic and, oh, but I love him and all this sort of crap, and they're driving all the way to Norway because for some reason that's where the image pops up, and it's just a bullshit ending. Like, I wanted to see the Daleks against the Cybermen ever since I knew that there was Daleks and Cybermen, and then we finally have it, and it's like, why is it so one-sided? It shouldn't have been like that. It should have been a full-out war where some Daleks lose, some Cybermen lose, but, you know, it's a fair battle. I don't mind if the Daleks win in the end, but can we at least have one Dalek blown up by a Cyberman? Please? Now, if it was these Cybermen, those Daleks would have been dead. They probably wouldn't though, would they? Let's face it. So overall, guys, I've got to say that this series is pretty poor overall. I spoke about the episodes then that I like because they stood out to me. You know, the school reunion and the first two-parters, and then Doomsday just lets the entire finale down. But if you think about it and you actually go through it, for me, New Earth, pretty crap. Tooth and Claw, boring and forgettable. School Reunion, we've already spoken about, really great. Girl in the Fireplace, I know a lot of people like it. I find it incredibly over the top, and again, it's the romance thing, and I would say it's probably Moffat's weakest script before he took over as showrunner. Or at least, I would say it's his weakest script up until Series 6. Then you've got the Cyberman two-parter, which, as I've said, I really enjoy. I think it's really good. You've got the Idiot's Lantern, which is cringeworthy and awful. Ood two-parter, best of the series. Then you've got Love and Monsters, which is, I think, fun and I enjoy it, but it's very much objectively bad. There's no way I can sit here and be like, it's definitely a highlight of the series. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's a guy in it who fucks a paving slab. It can't be good objectively just for that. Fear Her, again, appalling, a terrible episode. And then yeah, you've got the final two-parter, which I've briefly touched upon there. So overall, there isn't a lot of this series that I actually like or enjoy. Obviously, you guys will have your own opinion of this series, and that's fine. That's fair enough. But for me, Series 2 is 5 out of 10 at best. I think you could have really had a wonderful introduction to this Doctor if you didn't focus on the romance aspect. I mean, even if it's not necessarily with Rose, you've got it technically with Sarah Jane, you've got it with Madame de Pompadour, and that's like 4 episodes in and we've already dealt with that sort of stuff. And it's just like, let this Doctor be his own Doctor. Don't worry about the romance stuff. I think as the series goes on though, Tennant definitely does grow into the part more and he does better with what he is given. But overall, I don't massively love what he was given. In the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think of Series 2. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you indifferent on it? Do you think nostalgia has blinded your judgment? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description below as always, so if you would follow me on any of those things, I would absolutely love you forever. But until next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.